Hi, my name is Patricia Sommer, and I'm excited about giving this presentation for Dr. McDonald's class entitled Language Acquisition and Instruction at Liberty University. My presentation today will be about thematic units. We'll be looking at the characteristics of them as we see the need for them, their strengths, their weaknesses, and how they will affect the struggling reader. Proponents of thematic units maintain that traditional instruction is based upon teaching a math class, followed by a reading class, followed by a science class, etc., and that means of presenting information to the students is disjointed. Like this puzzle piece and how it's standing alone, each instructional concept is taught independently from all other instructional concepts. When material is presented as standalone concepts, the student is left to wonder how exactly this puzzle piece fits into my education. Why is this important to me? How is it going to benefit me for the rest of my life and through my educational process? The first strength that teachers record is that thematic units help them to salvage instructional time in the day-to-day aspect. They're able to combine language arts, the reading and the writing, along with history or science, the high content areas. And instead of teaching two independent subjects by merging them into one, the teachers feel like they're able to be more productive in using their time. And this is especially important since the No Child Left Behind has put such a great emphasis on teaching language arts and math. When they can combine history and science, which seem to be the more neglected subjects, they feel like they're able to cover more material for the students. The second strength that was mentioned several times in the articles that I read is that the students have increased motivation. Because they're learning things that are exciting to them and they're seeing how all these different subject matters interconnect with one another, they want to learn more. They are excited about talking about these concepts, bringing in fiction and nonfiction materials to see how they relate, and just overall having a good time learning. The third advantage is for the readers, specifically the struggling reader, but really any reader. As the motivation is increasing, and as the students are seeing pieces put together, they begin understanding more of the reading process. Different instructional methods such as read-alouds and scaffolding and cooperative learning help the struggling reader as well, as they have other individuals in the classroom or perhaps the teacher come alongside them and help them to read during this thematic unit. Like this puzzle picture here, the goal of thematic units is to present the student with a complete picture. We want the student to walk away from a unit understanding how these two subjects or perhaps three subjects relate to one another, so they get a more complete package of how this content material relates to real life. At first glance, you might say thematic units have it all. What could possibly go wrong? And yet there are some distinct weaknesses that need to be addressed. One weakness is that setup of thematic units is time-consuming for the teacher, as they are looking for different types of poetry, fiction, nonfiction works, short works, and long works that tie in with their high-content areas. It takes them a lot of time to make it all tie together so that the students get a cohesive body of knowledge. Now, having said that, the teachers who use thematic units, the ones that I researched at least, all said that the end product is well worth the time invested in it, but nevertheless, it is a time-consuming setup. The second weakness of thematic units is the educational gaps that can unfold. What I mean by that is that if teachers can present 6 different thematic units during the course of a year and are expected to maintain all content from the objectives that their state expects them to teach through that year, they're going to find that certain concepts are going to be skipped over or neglected, or they're going to try to force these concepts to fit into a thematic unit where they don't naturally belong. Kind of like this puzzle piece here, where these puzzle pieces don't belong in a circle. It's like taking your concepts and forcing them to fit a frame that just doesn't make sense. While thematic units are not perfect, they certainly can be usable. And the question that we have, the big question, is how can we make thematic units work? What is the key to making them successful for our students? One key to making thematic units work is to use them in moderation. And what I mean by that is to incorporate subjects that naturally have a connection, that naturally fit, so the students can see that natural connection, rather than trying to force everything to fit into a thematic unit and presenting information that just naturally doesn't connect. Another key that makes thematic units work is the teacher's use of scaffolding. You're encouraging the students to start making questions as they see how reality fits into their educational frame. And then they start thinking about these questions, and pretty soon they start coming up with some great ideas on their own. And so for the teacher to develop this thought process is a great benefit of using thematic units. Cooperative learning is also a great aspect of thematic units, and it naturally fits, as the students begin bringing their own puzzle pieces to the table, and they present their information, and then they have the opportunity to defend this concept to their classmates. It's great for the teacher to see how the students are thinking, how they're becoming more independent in their learning, and as they cooperate with one another throughout this unit. As the students bring all their pieces together, they see how they make their life work, just as you see this house works here with all the puzzle pieces together. This can be extended even further as you see how all these pieces fit together to make our world work the way it does, and even beyond that, to see how our universe works together. Just as this picture here shows the puzzle pieces that represent the universe, and you can see our Earth in there and the sun and so forth, so a child's education is now all put together as a complete package. Used in moderation, thematic units are a fantastic pattern of practice. I'd like to give credit to Jordan and Barnes, Kara Saturo and Rose, and Loveless and Crossland for their articles from which I drew much of this information.